Today, I'm going to explain a comedy horror film called Slither. In this movie, we follow the residents of a small town as they fight to keep a parasitic alien from infecting everyone. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Starla is a woman who is committed to honoring her marriage vows even in troubling times. Some neighbors question her intentions because she's beautiful and intelligent while her husband, Grant, is unattractive, but she seems unconcerned with what other people think. However, her commitment to her marriage is tested to the extreme when Grant transforms into something hideous. In this film, we'll find out how far she would go to honor her commitment as the authorities hunt down her husband. A meteorite from outer space hurtles towards Earth and lands somewhere in the woods of a South Carolina town called Wheelsey. In mere moments, a spheroid from the meteorite breaks open, revealing an organic material inside. In the morning, the residents go about their day, unaware of the meteorite that crashed in their town. Starla Grant gives a lecture about evolution in her class, but some of the male students are more interested in her figure than the lesson. After class, Starla's husband, Grant, arrives to take her home. A cop named Trevor sees the couple and remarks that he'll never understand how Grant ended up with a beauty like Starla. Margaret points out that Grant is a wealthy man while Starla was dirt poor. He started pursuing her. Police Chief Bill Pardee adds that Starla's mother had abandoned her when she was 17. There was no one to take care of her because her father was a drunkard. While most people see Starla as a gold digger, Bill knows that Starla's reasons for marrying Grant are more complicated than what others think. For Bill, there's a huge difference between a gold digger and a woman who marries a man to escape a hopeless situation. Grant seems to know what other people think about their marriage. He displays his insecurity by fetching Starla after class and not entrusting her with her own car to get home on her own. That night, Grant tries to make love to Starla, but she says she's not in the mood. In his frustration, Grant leaves the house and goes to the bar, where he meets Brenda. After a few drinks, Brenda leads Grant into the woods to show him a tree, where she carved their initials when he was infatuated with him. Brenda tries to make out with him, but Grant says he must go home because Starla would be worried about him. While preparing to leave, he notices the broken spheroid and a trail that leads to a maggot-like creature. As Grant inspects the creature, it suddenly shoots a needle that pierces his chest. The needle turns out to be a parasite that moves toward his brain and takes over his body. Grant leaves Brenda without saying a word. When he gets back home, he goes straight to the fridge and takes all the meat he can find. In the morning, Starla feels guilty about refusing to make love with Grant, so she seduces him while their favorite song, Every Woman in the World by Air Supply, plays on the stereo. Grant notices their wedding picture and makes love to Starla. At the school, another teacher notices that Starla is too cheerful, so she explains that Grant made love to her like it was their first time, and she sensed a significant change in him. Starla shows that her marriage to Grant is not all about money, and she's determined to perform her wifely duties. Her excitement about the changes she saw in Grant indicates that she has romantic feelings for him. Grant demonstrates that he's just as committed as Starla by rejecting Brenda even when his wife refuses to get intimate with him. Meanwhile, Grant buys an unusual amount of meat from the grocery and brings it home. When Starla asks him about a newly installed lock on the door to the basement, he claims that he's preparing a surprise for her birthday, which is still 2 months away. Later, Starla takes a shower to prepare for the launch of the deer season at the bar. Grant slowly approaches Starla as tentacles emerge from his body, but he eventually takes control of it. When Starla notices him, he suddenly tells her that he must go back to work, so she goes to the bar alone. Bill can't help but stare at her when he sees her arrive. Grant goes to Brenda's house and pretends to be interested in making love to her. When he takes off his shirt, Brenda is horrified to see the lesions on his chest. 2 tentacles suddenly slither out of Grant's body and puncture Brenda's stomach. Grant holds Brenda down and covers her mouth to keep her from screaming while strange liquid flows through the tentacles. When Brenda gets home, she's startled to see lumps on Grant's head, so she tells him to go to the hospital. However, Grant claims that he was stung by a bee, and he already visited the doctor. He notices the look of horror on Starla's face, so he begs her not to look at him that way. The following day, Starla calls Grant's doctor to tell him that her husband's condition is getting worse, but the doctor contends that Grant never came to see him. As she drives home, Starla notices the numerous postings of missing pets on a bulletin board. Grant doesn't want Starla to be frightened of him because he retains his affection for her even as the parasite is taking control of his body. The alien doesn't seem to be in total control because Grant managed to restrain himself when he felt the urge to attack Starla in the shower. He goes for Brenda has no feelings for her, and she's an easy target because of her infatuation with him. That night, Grant takes several packets of raw meat to a barn to feed Brenda, who's complaining of extreme hunger. Meanwhile, Bill and Wally stop by Grant's house to question him about Brenda's disappearance. Bill tells Starla that witnesses saw Grant entering her house before she went missing. Starla asserts that the person of interest was not her husband, so Bill leaves her a card and tells her to call as soon as Grant gets home. As soon as the cops leave, Starla breaks the lock on the basement door. Downstairs, she finds several dead bodies of dogs and cats, so she runs back upstairs to call Bill, but she gets the answering machine. As she leaves a message, Grant appears by the window, grunting and growling at her. Starla tries to run out of the house, but Grant intercepts her by the door. He contends that he didn't intend to hurt Starla, but now he feels betrayed, and he can no longer trust her. Grant tries to insert the two tentacles into Starla's stomach, but she manages to get away. However, Grant quickly restrains her in a headlock in his arm that appears to be stretching unnaturally. When Bill arrives, Grant releases Starla and runs out of the house. Grant's memories of Starla are still intact, but he is gradually losing control of himself as time passes. As he goes on the run, he will surely have fewer restraints over his actions because of the lack of contact with Starla. So far, he has only killed his neighbor's pets, and Brenda remains alive, but that could change soon. 3 days later, Mayor Jack McCready orders Bill to find Grant quickly because the town council is pressuring him to resolve the situation. Bill's assistant, Shelby, suddenly receives a complaint about another attack at a farm, so Bill and the officers immediately leave the station. While investigating the farm, Bill figures out that Grant is following a pattern, so they go back to the station to brief his officers and some volunteers. Bill tells them that Grant will probably be at a farm owned by the Stratemeyer family, so they prepare to stake out the place. Before they can leave, Starla arrives and persuades Bill to take her with them. While waiting for Grant to attack, Bill reminds Starla of the time she asked him to run away with her to Hollywood to be her bodyguard as she pursues her dream to become an actress. Bill notes that he refused to come with her because he believed she was capable of taking care of herself. Starla recalled that she only got as far as the bus stop because Bill called her father. When Grant arrives, they notice that his body is even more deformed than the last time they saw him. After Grant kills a cow, Starla approaches him and pleads with him to come with them so they can help him. Starla then reminds him that she vowed to stay with him for better or worse on their wedding day. Bill is obviously in love with Starla, and he uses the opportunity to remind her of the time they almost eloped together because he probably believes he might have a chance with her now that Grant is no longer himself. However, Starla's presence at the stakeout indicates that she still has hope of saving her husband despite his appearance. Starla might be trying to save him because she wants to be true to her vow, not because she's head over heels in love with Grant. As Grant turns away, Charlie blocks his way and threatens to shoot him if he doesn't tell them where to find Brenda. Grant swiftly flings his tentacles toward Charlie and cuts him in half. The officers and volunteers all start firing their guns at Grant, so he rapidly crawls to the woods. During their pursuit of Grant, the group comes across the barn where Grant is keeping Brenda. When they get inside, they discover that Brenda has been bloated like a giant ball. As they figure out what to do with her, her body starts to expand. Bill notices Grant by the window and realizes that he led them into a trap. When Brenda's body explodes, a large number of red slugs emerge and attack them. Bill sees the slugs entering the mouths of the others, so he instructs Margaret and Starla to cover their mouth. Soon, the slugs leave the barn and slither to the Stratemeyer house. One of the slugs ends up in the bathroom while Kylie is taking a bath. When the slug enters her mouth, Kylie gets a glimpse of the creature's memories before it came to Earth and up to the time Grant infected Brenda. Kylie manages to pull the slug out of her mouth and kill it with a hair straightener. She quickly runs out of the bathroom to call for help, but she finds out that her mom is already infected. She tries helping her little sisters, but they're already convulsing by the time she gets inside their room. Kylie escapes from the house and locks herself inside a pickup truck. Kylie's vision hint that the slugs and the parasitic creature inside Grant assimilate the memories of their hosts. It also suggests that Grant may already be dead, and the alien may only be behaving like him because it has absorbed his entire personality. Even though Starla's husband is dead, she can still appeal to the creature by using Grant's love for her to prevent him from taking over the whole town. Bill tries to contact Shelby to ask for help, but there's no reply, so he runs back to the car to call for paramedics. Margaret finds out that the infected cops are still alive, so they take their bodies out of the barn. Soon, Wally wakes up and apologizes to Starla for strangling her. He stresses that he didn't mean to kill the neighbor's pets and turn Brenda into a worm, but he couldn't help it because it's his nature. Soon, the other infected members of the group wake up. When Starla notices that they're all talking like her husband, they contend they're all Grant. Trevor notices Margaret trying to pull out her gun, so he sprays her with toxic liquid from his mouth. Margaret's face rapidly swells from the toxin, and she soon falls unconscious. Starla shoots Wally in the head, but she runs out of ammo when she tries to shoot the others, so she and the mayor run into the woods. Meanwhile, Kylie cowers in fear inside the truck as her family compels her to come out. Her father grabs a rock and smashes the windshield, but Bill arrives and calls their attention. While they're distracted, Kylie comes out and runs toward Bill. Kylie tells Bill that they're no longer her family because the worms have infected them. Margaret was hoping that there might still be a way to save their infected friends, but that thought had vanished from Starla's mind when they started attacking. If anyone would know if the infected could still be saved, it would be Kylie. However, she doesn't mention anything about saving her family, which either means she doesn't know or it's no longer possible. Other zombies arrive to attack them, so Bill and Kylie run to the police car. After getting inside, Bill sees Starla and Jack running from an infected Trevor, so he runs over the zombie. Bill and Kylie watch Starla in shock as she impales Trevor with a steel bar. After Jack and Starla join them in the car, Bill heads back to the police station. On the way, Bill contacts Shelby through the radio and asks her to contact the CDC. After she puts the radio down, slugs drop down from the ceiling and attack her. Kylie recounts that she became part of Grant when the slug tried to infect her. She notes that the creature infected Grant comes from outer space and travels from one planet to another to kill their inhabitants. The creature impregnates some of its victims, takes over the bodies of others, and eats the rest. Bill deduces that the worms are telepathically connected and act as if they're a single creature. Starla remarks that the parasite behaves like a conscious disease. Bill contacts Shelby again upon passing the city limits, but he's unaware that Shelby's already infected. After Shelby remarks that she has a surprise for them, a vehicle suddenly crashes into them. At this rate, it seems like there is no way to stop the slugs from infecting the whole town. If they really are telepathically connected, Bill and his friends will have a tougher time dealing with the creatures because all the zombies will go after them even if only one of them detects the uninfected group. Escaping the town doesn't seem like a viable option because the slugs would eventually reach the nearby towns, so they have no choice but to find out how to kill all of them. When the zombies arrive, Bill manages to pull Kylie out of the car, but he can't save Starla and Jack. Bill and Kylie sneak their way to the police station to get a grenade because he has a hunch that the other aliens will die once they eliminate Grant. When Bill gets inside, an infected deer attacks before he can reach the grenade. Fortunately, Kylie hears the noise and saves him by hitting the deer with a fire extinguisher. The zombies take Starla to her home and lay her down in her bed. Bill follows the infected people in the streets in the hopes of finding Starla. Meanwhile, Jack wakes up and finds himself among the zombies while they're feasting on the meat of dead animals in Grant's basement. Jack manages to climb upstairs, but Grant hits him with his tentacles as soon as he opens the door. Starla tries to escape from her room, but she can't find a way out, so she grabs a brush with a pointed handle and conceals it under her nightgown. Grant hasn't infected Starla yet, which means that he has a special plan for her. If Grant still has feelings for Starla, he may not want to infect her because he would only turn her into a mindless zombie. Grant may want to keep her mind intact, so she could keep him company once he has infected everyone else. Grant turns on the stereo and plays Air Supply's Every Woman in the World to call Starla's attention. In the basement, Jack starts getting hungry, so he reluctantly nibbles on a dead man's arm. When Starla gets downstairs, she finds numerous pictures of her on the wall. Grant berates her for breaking her vow to stick with him for better or worse. Kylie and Bill soon arrive at the house and witness how Grant absorbs the zombies into his growing body. Grant starts to wrap Starla with his tentacle, so she starts apologizing for turning him away. Grant eventually lets go when he hears Starla calling him by his name. Grant seems to be receptive, so she walks toward Grant slowly and promises to be there for him. When she gets close enough to Grant, she pulls out the brush and stabs him. Grant screams in pain and slaps her away with his tentacle. Starla seems to know that the creature before her is not Grant anymore, but she realizes that the alien still has retained his memories and feelings. He shows this by playing their favorite song and letting her know that he still expects her to fulfill her vows. Although she was able to exploit these feelings, the creature is still not vulnerable enough to kill. When Bill and Kylie get inside the house, Jack emerges and begs Bill to kill him. Bill shoots him in the head without hesitation. As soon as Bill sees Grant, he pulls the pin out of the grenade, but Grant swats it away with his tentacle. Bill manages to retrieve the grenade, but he drops it on the swimming pool after Grant throws him out of the room. Grant then knocks Kylie out by throwing a couch on her. Grant attempts to pierce Bill with his 2 tentacles, but Bill manages to block one of them. Bill notices a propane tank nearby, so he attaches one of the tentacles into it. After Grant pulls him back into the room, Bill instructs Starla to shoot Grant. After hesitating for a second, Starla pulls the trigger. Due to the flammable gas inside him, Grant explodes, and all the zombies drop to the ground. When the 3 head outside, they find no other survivors. Starla remarks that Bill must be regretting his decision not to run off with her to Hollywood. Bill stresses that he always regretted that decision. Since there is no one in town to treat Bill's wounds, the 3 of them go on their way to the next town to seek help. The alien has become lonely from assimilating and killing everyone it comes across, but it couldn't leave anyone uninfected or alive since everyone it doesn't absorb would pose a threat to it. It was able to endure the loneliness throughout but it probably became more apparent after it absorbed Grant's mind. Although it retained its primary goal to absorb every living organism, it started longing for Starla's love. In the end, his longing has made him vulnerable because it allowed Starla to live. It never thought she would be the one to pull the trigger that killed it.